Hey guys! As we wind down tonight, we drift toward the Highlands of Ethiopia, where silence clings to the stone like old incense. And the air carries a hum, not quite bees, not quite prayer, but something in between. You're perched halfway up a cliff. Below you, shadows stretch like melted wax. A stone church hewn from the mountain itself. Waits, watching with no eyes. A monk leans into a beehive hanging from the rock wall. No suit, no gloves. Just cloth, courage, and a face already stung a dozen times. He's after honey. Not for tea, or toast, or any luxury, but for something deeper, something sacred. This is not a world where sweetness comes easy, and tonight you're going to find out just how much it takes to bring a spoonful of golden honey into the hands of the holy. You might not survive this one, but at least you'll go out with sticky fingers. Before you settle in, feel free to give the video a like and hit subscribe if you'll be truly enjoying the journey. You can also leave a comment. Let me know where you're listening from and what time it is there. It's always a small wonder to see people tuning in from so many corners of the world. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that gentle hum in the background, and together, let's ease into tonight's story. High up in the Ethiopian Highlands, far from the paved roads, the markets, the echoes of modern life, there's a different rhythm. Monks live here, in stone monasteries that don't just sit on cliffs, but become the cliffs. Some are carved directly into the rock. Some hang like quiet thoughts above the valleys. All of them hum with the low, constant music of ritual. And here, honey is more than sweetness. It's medicine, it's metaphor, sacrament. It's smeared on wounds, mixed with ash, offered at altars, hidden inside prayers. You might think of honey as luxury, but in this place, it's survival with a golden smile. It stings, it soothes, it sanctifies. And tonight, you'll walk with those who gather it, barefoot, breathless, and just a little sticky. It begins, as most unpleasant things do, with a rope. A rope that's been twisted too many times, sun-bleached to the color of old teeth, and smells faintly of goat, mildew, and something you hope isn't still alive. This is the rope that will carry you, not metaphorically, but physically, down the face of a cliff. And not a gentle slope either. This is a vertical wall of rock, the kind birds hesitate to land on. Your destination. A hive hidden in the crags? Somewhere between difficult and unwise to reach. You're barefoot, because shoes are a luxury, and also because the rope is part of the ritual. Monks aren't supposed to wear leather, and besides, the soles of your feet have seen more punishment than most battlefields. They grip the rock like they remember every stone personally, which they might, given how often you've done this. The honey isn't in a cozy wooden box or a neatly stacked set of frames. It's inside a crevice that barely fits your arm, surrounded by bees who did not ask to be part of your spiritual journey. You mutter a prayer. The bees are unimpressed. You get stung on the lip. Again, the wind doesn't help. It's not a breeze. More like an opinionated slap from nature itself. It hits your robes, balloons them out like you're trying to take flight, and reminds you that balance is not guaranteed. The rope creaks. You creak. Everything creaks, and none of it is comforting. You're halfway down now. You've passed the first ledge where a lizard stared at you in judgment. Your hand searches for the next handhold, but the rock has other plants. It's crumbly here. It's like stale bread. With delusions of being stone, you almost slip. But don't, just barely. Maybe you expected peace, serenity, the warm embrace of devotion. What you get is sunburn on your neck, bee venom in your eye, and the sudden realization that the jar you brought to collect the honey has a crack in it. You pretend not to notice. You're too far down now to climb back without something to show for it. You reach the hive. It's buzzing, audibly and spiritually. Sound like soft thunder or a chorus of small creatures muttering insults. You reach in, slowly, carefully. The bees remind you that your slowness is irrelevant. They sting anyway. Your hand, your arm, your shoulder, they crawl into your sleeve and hold a meeting. But you don't flinch. You've been told this is part of the blessing. Pain before sweetness. You'd like to have a word with whoever wrote that proverb. You pull out a slab of comb. It's golden, glistening, and immediately begins to leak down your wrists like sincerity out of a confession. It smells like wildflowers, smoke, and old sun. For a moment, it's beautiful. Then another bee flies directly into your ear. You do not scream. Ah. You are a monk. You are devout. You are deeply, profoundly regretting your life choices. You tie the honeycomb into the cloth pouch, signal the others above, and begin the slow ascent. The rope digs into your hips. The rock scrapes your knees. The wind picks up again just to make sure you don't forget who's in charge. By the time you're back at the top, you're bleeding in 3 places. You've swallowed at least 1 bee by accident, and your cracked jar has dripped half its contents onto your robes. They tell you this is sacred work. You believe them. But you also suspect holiness tastes like regret and bee legs. No, you don't bring fire into a monastery lightly. It's not exactly forbidden. But it's watched the way you might watch a candle next to a sleeping dog. With respect, no panic, and a bucket of water nearby. But today, you're carrying smoke. Not for heat, not for light, but for bees. Because someone centuries ago realized that bees, like most living things, don't enjoy being gently suffocated. The idea is simple. Smoke calms the bees. It interrupts their frantic little alarm pheromones, masks their scent signals, and convinces them, temporarily, that the world isn't ending. Or that it's ending so thoroughly there's no point in fighting. Either way, it gives you a brief window to take their honey without donating all your skin to the cause. You've packed a small clay smoker. It's filled with dried herbs, bark shavings, and a few questionable leaves someone insisted were mystically calming. They aren't. But they burn well, and they smell like burnt laundry and lavender, which is something. Lighting it is another matter. The monastery doesn't have matches. Of course not. You crouch beside the storage shed, rubbing flint and steel together like a squirrel auditioning for fire. Sparks fly. 1 lands, you blow gently. 2 gently. Nothing happens. You blow harder. It flares, then dies, insulted. Eventually, with more prayer than skill, the herbs catch. Smoke curls up like a bored ghost stretching its limbs. You carry it like incense. Carefully, reverently, try not to cough or sneeze, or accidentally set your sleeve ablaze. The bees are already circling. Maybe you thought this would be elegant, slow procession toward the hive. A gentle puff of smoke, bees relaxing into a dreamy stupor, handing over their honey like generous monks of the insect world. It isn't. The wind immediately changes direction. The smoke wafts back into your face, filling your nose, your throat, your eyes. You cough. The bees interpret this as hostility. One stings your eyebrow. Another lands in your mouth. You Dante scream. Because monks aren't supposed to, but you do make a sound that could be transcribed as HHFFFFRRK. You adjust your position. Puff more smoke into the hive entrance. Some of the bees do seem drowsy. They stagger a little, bump into each other, and hum in confusion. You think it's working? You reach for the comb? It starts working less. The bees rally. Whatever momentary haze the smoke provided has cleared, and they've decided you are, in fact, the enemy. You retreat 1 step, then another. You drop the clay smoker. It rolls, hissing smoke and judgment, and cracks on a stone. Now you have no smoke, just smoldering regret. You run, or you walk. Quickly, because running in robes never ends well. The bees follow for a bit, then lose interest. Your lip is swelling. Your eyes sting. The smoke has soaked into your clothes so thoroughly you'll smell like burn time for the next week. You return to the monastery with half a comb, a smoldering pouch, and a vague sensation that the bees have formed a union and filed a complaint. The elder monk nods. Good, he says. Next time bring more smoke. You smile. Barley and Dante ask how you. Were you supposed to do that with exactly 1 working lung and 3 bee stings in your armpit? The robe is supposed to protect you. It's what they say, at least. Layers of linen or cotton, sometimes a rough wool cloak if you're particularly lucky. Wrapped around your body like faith wrapped around suffering. In theory, a barrier between you and the world. In practice, a mildly scratchy invitation for things to crawl inside and make themselves at home. Especially bees. Your robe isn't tailored, it's draped, which means there are gaps. Gaps at the sleeves, at the collar, under the arms, along the seams. Little welcoming hollows where bees can squeeze in, get lost, panic, and sting you repeatedly while trying to find the exit. The fabric does nothing to stop them. It slows them down just enough to make the stings feel personal. Maybe you expected the monks had special garments for this. Reinforced tunics, secret inner padding, maybe even hoods like beekeepers. No, they have prayer, and a vague trust in the Lord's mercy. And your robe, which smells faintly of sweat, wax, and humility, is now buzzing at the shoulder. You try not to panic. You really do. Panic makes it worse. The bee feels it, reacts, crawls deeper. There's a moment, a single, horrible moment, where it's perched just below your scapula, wings vibrating like an insult whispered directly into your spine. You freeze. You hope. You whisper an apology to all bees, past and present. Then it stings you. Through the fabric, through your patience, through your robe and into your understanding of suffering. You don't scream. But your face contorts into something a saint might recognize from old paintings. The kind of expression people carve into woodblocks when depicting martyrdom. Except you're not dying for your faith. You're dying because your robe has a hole the size of a lentil. The sting begins to swell. Of course it does. Your skin reacts dramatically, like it's auditioning for a role in a tragedy. The pain blooms slow and sharp, as if your shoulder is being lectured by fire. You keep working. There's still honey to collect, and your hands bless clumsy, faithful things. Reach toward the next comb. Another bee enters your sleeve. This one doesn't wait. It stings instantly, then dies in protest. Its tiny corpse stuck to your elbow like a badge of misplaced valor. You wonder if the robe is cursed, or perhaps just an accomplice. It hangs on you with that familiar heavy dampness that only comes from sweat, mist, and existential disappointment. Each movement pulls it tighter, then looser, then tight again. Never quite where you want it. Always sagging in a way that lets air in, but never lets discomfort out. You shift it. It shifts back. You tug at the hem. It tugs elsewhere. You roll up one sleeve, the other falls down. There's no winning. It's just a long series of compromises between you. Gravity, fabric, and insects that don't care you're supposed to be meditating. By the time the task is done, you've been stung 7 times. Sweated through 3 layers, and accumulated enough wax on your hands to start a small candle business. Your robe is crumpled, sticky, and smells like a slightly disappointed meadow. The elder monk sees you return. He gestures at your tattered sleeve. "Ah," he says, nodding. "The bees have accepted you." You smile politely and wonder if acceptance always comes with this much swelling. The ledge is not flat. It's the first lie. From above, it looks like a solid outcropping, maybe even comfortable. Not something you might sit on while contemplating impermanence. In reality, it slopes slightly downward, is covered in a thin slick of something mossy, and features exactly one patch that could generously be described as stable, and even that S optimistic. You reach it anyway. You always do. It's part of the routine, like dawn prayers or scraping bees out of your collar. You descend on the rope, feet searching for the familiar notches. Fingers curled into the rock with the same reverence usually reserved for relics. The stone is cold this morning, colder than usual, and damp in that invisible way that doesn't look wet but feels like betrayal. Your foot slips. Just a little, just enough for your stomach to drop half a second before your body corrects the error. You hug the wall. The rope groans. The wind chooses that exact moment to gust. Not strongly, just pointedly, as if to remind you it's still watching. Maybe you thought the climb would become easier with time, that your body would adapt, grow stronger, more monk-like. But all it's grown is more aware of how many joints you have, and how often they complain. Your knees, in particular, stage a small protest halfway down. They aren't subtle about it. You mutter something holy. The wind steals it before it reaches the sky. Your hands, chalky with dust and wax residue, grip the frayed fibers of the rope. Each strand is a prayer, one for strength, one for mercy, several for rope integrity. Your left hand burns, you ignore it. The knot at your waist digs in, you shift. It digs deeper. You try not to think about how far below the ground is, or how few people are trained in cliffside monk rescue. The answer is 0. Still, you make it. The ledge accepts you, begrudgingly. You press your back to the rock. It's not flat either. It juts where it should curve, and indents where it should support. You twist your torso into something resembling stillness. A bee lands near your ear. You freeze. It departs. You thank it with a level of sincerity you usually reserve for divine beings. Time to work. You reach toward the hive. The bees are louder today. Angry? No, just bees. You remind yourself not to project. They don't hate you. They just exist. In their little world of wax and queens and misunderstood aggression. They're simply a large, strange, slightly sweaty event. Something to be reacted to, not punished. The honeycomb breaks free easier than expected. Comes away in a heavy golden slab, soft and yielding and miraculous. You hold it close, as if it might run away. The scent is thick, floral, smoky, old sunlight trapped in amber. You place it gently into the pouch and begin the climb back up. This part is worse. Going down is terrifying. Coming up is exhausting. The rope cuts into your palms. Your arms burn. The honey leaks slowly, as if mourning its departure from the hive. You want to stop just for a moment, but stopping means dangling. Dangling means thinking. Thinking means realizing that this is the 4th time this week you've risked death for breakfast garnish. You finally reach the top, collapse in the dust. The elder monk looks at the honey, nods once and walks away. No applause, no blessing. Just the usual silence in your knees, still protesting. Sometimes the hives aren't on cliffs. Sometimes they're in trees. This should be good news. You imagine shade, solid ground, a little forest breeze. Maybe even the sound of birds politely ignoring your struggle. Compared to the sheer rock faces and wind-slap theology of cliff hives, a tree seems positively luxurious. But this is not a story with good news. The tree in question is hollow. Not romantically hollow, not the kind of storybook tree with gentle moss and a friendly badger playing a lute. This one is dead. Or possibly alive, but pretending otherwise. Its bark peels in long sheets, its branches creak even without wind, and its trunk leans just enough to suggest future collapse. Still, the bees love it, which means you must love it. Or at least approach it with the kind of resigned affection normally reserved for cousins who borrow things and never return them. You bring the pouch. You bring the smoke. You bring the robe that has not once in its entire lifespan protected you from anything more dangerous than mild weather. The bees are already humming. It's not loudly, more like they're discussing you in hushed tones. You crouch near the base. The entrance is narrow, just wide enough to slip your hand in. You pause. This is the kind of situation where instinct tells you to stop, reassess, and perhaps leave. Monastic discipline tells you to pray. You choose prayer. It does not prevent what happens next. You reach in. Your hand brushes wax, then honeycomb, then a bee, then more bees. Then something that might be a bit of old bark, or might be a beetle with opinions. You keep going, the bees notice. One lands on your knuckle, another crawls across your wrist. You freeze, as usual, and whisper peace into the tree like it might understand language. You feel the honeycomb give. It's soft, pliable, textured like a warm memory. You ease it loose, try to extract it gently. But the tree, which until now has been playing the part of neutral background object, suddenly snaps. Not loudly, not dramatically, just a tiny shift. A flex. A whisper of movement that sends a cascade of dust, bark flakes, and one very indignant squirrel out the top of the trunk. You jerk your arm. Not fast enough. Splinter digs into your wrist. The honeycomb half tears, half melts. Some of it lands on your lap, some on the ground, a lot of it on your foot, which is now firmly planted in a growing puddle of sweetness and soil. The bees respond as bees do, with confusion, escalation, and pointy parts. You're stung twice, both on your left forearm. One sting for the disturbance. One, you suspect, as a form of commentary. You retreat, honey-covered, and spiritually bruised, dragging your robe through a thicket of thorns, because of course there are thorns. Back at the monastery, no one asks about the scratches, or the squirrel bite, or why your sandal is full of bark chips. They just see the pouch half full, slightly sticky, mostly victorious. The elder monk nods, says, "Ah, the forest hive. A lesson in surrender." You want to say the only thing surrendered was your dignity, but you don't. You bow, walk away, leaking honey at every step. You try to stay clean. You really do, eh? There's a basin behind the eastern wall, a shallow stone depression fed by a narrow trickle of mountain spring. It's clear, icy, and blessed by whoever last bothered to sprinkle it with a prayer. You kneel before it after every harvest, sleeves rolled, eyes half closed, trying to wash away the stickiness that has, once again, claimed most of your forearms and a deeply personal section of your neckline. So the problem is, honey doesn't rinse. It clings. It sinks into fabric and skin like guilt after a lazy prayer session. No matter how long you scrub, there is always a lingering residue, a sheen of sweetness that docently belong in a monastery. You wipe your face, and your hair snags. That's when you realize wax again. A small glob tucked just behind your left ear, nestled like a secret. You don't know how it got there. You never do. But it's there, and it will remain until the next full cleansing ritual. Or possibly until Judgment Day. You notice Brother Geshaw watching you. He's clean. He's always clean. His robes are pressed. His hands are uncalloused. His sandals make no sound on stone. You suspect he was born polished and has never seen a bee up close in his life. He nods at your sticky elbows. Tough morning? You don't reply. Words might drip. Instead, you return to scrubbing. But the cold water only makes the honey firmer, like it's decided to become part of your skin. The basin overflows slightly. Your knees are numb. You smell like a pastry that fell behind a shrine and was forgotten for 3 days. Back inside, the younger novices look at you with a mix of awe and concern. One of them points to your robe, where a small smear of honey has attracted 3 ants and what might be the beginning of a theological argument about cleanliness. You try to sit down. Your sleeve sticks to the wooden bench. You try to pull it free. You resist. You try again. It unsticks with a sound that should not be heard during Vespers. You bow your head and pray, not for enlightenment, not for grace. Just for 5 minutes without discovering new places where bees have hidden things. That's when Brother Gashal passes again. He's holding a scroll. It's clean. The corners are still crisp. His sandals remain spotless. You wonder if he even sweats. You suspect not. You suspect he lives in a permanent state of dry cleanliness, like a scroll rack that has achieved sentience. The abbot calls you forward. You hesitate, hoping it's not about the honey trail you've been leaving across the floor. He gestures to the altar. "Help me light the candles," he says. You do. And the wax on your fingers catches fire, not dramatically. Just a tiny curl of flame, like a prayer with too much enthusiasm. You shake your hand, the flame dies. You pretend it didn't happen. After prayers, you sneak back to your cell. Your blanket is stiff from yesterday's spill. Your mat smells like old pollen. You lie down anyway. There's wax in your hair again. You leave it. Tomorrow is another hive, another robe, another argument with gravity and insects, and a basin that judges you every time you kneel. But at least you'll know where the wax came from, probably. There is a moment in every monk's life when the bees stop seeing you as a threat and start seeing you as furniture. You don't notice it at first. You assume they read just in a generous mood. Less stinging, more hovering. Maybe a polite buzz near the ear, followed by a graceful drift toward someone else's misery. But then it escalates. Today they land on you. Not in panic, not in fury, in peace. It's like you're part of the landscape. It's like your shoulder is a branch. Like your ear is a warm, wobbly petal. And worse, you let them. You're standing in morning prayer, lips murmuring a hymn whose verses you've forgotten halfway through. The rhythm is familiar, like breath or regret. But the words drift. One stanza melts into another. You glance at Brother Tikal beside you. He's very focused. His mouth moves with precision. His posture is immaculate. He looks like a statue sculpted entirely out of obedience. You look down. There's a bee on your hand, another on your forearm. A third on the hem of your robe, which is gently twitching. Not from wind, not from movement, but from bees crawling inside again. You try to ignore it. Focus on the chant. Lord, let your light know. That's not right. Or is it? You've repeated it so often, it no longer sounds like language. The bee on your hand shifts. Its tiny legs tickle like a gentle reprimand. A fourth lands on your bald spot. You feel it walk in a slow circle, perhaps inspecting you for devotional quality. Someone coughs. You blink. You are covered in bees. Not dramatically, not dangerously, just comprehensively. And no one else seems to notice. That's the most unsettling part. Brother Tekel doesn't react. The abbot doesn't pause. The prayers continue. and you, draped in droning, golden stillness, suddenly realize you are, for all practical purposes, a moving shrine. Right. You think about panicking. But there's nowhere to run that won't involve flailing, and flailing in a chapel is generally frowned upon. So you stand and hum and try not to move. One of the bees settles on your lip. It's not angry, just indecisive. It leaves. You survive the hymn, barely. After the final word, you step outside, slowly, gently, like a man trying not to offend the breeze. The bees follow, hovering like an entourage. You walk toward the hive sheds. A young novice sees you, eyes wide. Are you keeping them? You shake your head. One bee flies off. To remain. You try to brush them away. They resist. The one on your shoulder seems especially attached. It does not sting. It simply stays. You wonder if it has a name. You consider naming it. You enter the tool shed and sit. The bees do not leave. You are apparently the hive now. Brother Gashaw passes the doorway, sees you, raises an eyebrow, says nothing. You remain in the shed for another 20 minutes, waiting for the bees to get bored. They don't. Eventually, the bell rings for work duty. You rise slowly. The bees rise with you. They drift off, one by one, except the shoulder bee. That one remains. Give up. The robe is already sticky, your hair already waxed, your soul already humbled. As well carry a few insects too. It starts with a sound. Low, at first, like distant rain falling on dry leaves, then louder, then deeper. A vibration that fills your chest before it touches your ears. You're sitting in silence, reading a crumbling manuscript about saints who walked on water, when the air begins to thrum. The other monks pause, heads lift, pages stop turning. No one speaks, because in this place, bees are more than insects. They are signs, symbols, sometimes sermons, and this, you realize, is no ordinary hum. You step outside. Sunlight is harsh, but the sound is louder still, not angry, not chaotic, just immense. A slow, swelling cloud is forming above the east field, just beyond the prayer garden. 100,000 wings, maybe more. It's not a swarm, it's a relocation, a migration. The queen has taken flight. You do not prepare for this. You don't train. There's no drill. No one says, remember your bee evacuation protocol, because usually the bees stay. That's the agreement. They bless you with honey, wax, a few stings, and the occasional moment of insect-related spiritual revelation in return. You give them peace, shelter, and your forearms. But sometimes a queen decides it's time to move. And when she moves, the entire hive follows. Not politely, not with notice, but immediately and all at once, like a monastery's worth of monks deciding, without warning, to take a jog off a cliff because someone heard a whisper from God. You jog toward the field, you and half the monastery. Sandals flapping, robes caught by the wind, hands shielding faces from the thickening swarm. Brother Tekel carries a smoking bundle of sage. Brother Gashaw does not run. He glides. His robe remains untouched, of course. His sandals, as always, are suspiciously clean. The bees don't sting. They're too focused. You can feel it. The air pulses with a strange determination, as if every wing beat is part of a plan you are not consulted about. You see them gather in the acacia tree, clustered thick around a single dark branch. The queen is in there somewhere, hidden in the middle like a holy relic surrounded by murmuring pilgrims. Someone fetches the ceremonial basket. It's a wide woven thing, lined with old cloth and half a psalm. You climb the tree. Not elegantly, not with grace. It's more like a hesitant goat that regrets every life decision made since dawn. The bark flakes under your palms. The branch creaks.
Oh.
The bees continue humming, indifferent. You hold the basket beneath the cluster. You shake the branch. It's not gentle. It never is. The entire mass drops in a slow-motion avalanche of wings, and legs in sacred confusion. Some land in the basket, some do not. Some land on you again. You close the lid, carefully, reverently, like sealing up a prayer, back on the ground. The other monks nod. One claps quietly. The abbot says she has chosen a new place. We must follow. You nod too, even though you're still half covered in bees and sap and divine mystery. The hive will be moved. The day will be rewritten. Morning prayers will be rescheduled. and your hands, sticky with purpose, will ache all the way into vespers. Your cell is not large. It is, as the elder monks say, sufficient, which in practice means it contains a mat, a shelf, and a window too small to escape through, but just wide enough to let in the occasional spider or judgmental crow. You sleep, read, pray, sometimes sit for hours staring at the wall as if waiting for it to answer a question you forgot how to phrase. This morning, however, the wall is not the main concern. There are bees inside, not just one. That happens often enough. Curious scout, a misdirected wanderer. No, this is a procession. Slow, polite, completely unnecessary line of bees entering through the slats near the window, circling once, and then settling on your candle shelf like they've been invited. You stand, cautiously, as if the floor might also be bees. The candle is still unlit. The bees don't mind. They cluster around the base, then form a small spiral upward. One lands on your pillow. You try not to take that personally. You open the window, wave your sleeve gently. A few bees depart, others stay. You consider negotiating. You speak softly. This is not your cell. I have nothing sweet. Please reconsider. Wait. Then you remember the bread. You baked it yesterday, if baked can be applied to what happened. The monastery's oven was full. So, like a man both practical and desperate, you tucked the small loaf into the edge of your chimney flue, balancing it on an old tile and a handful of faith. You meant to retrieve it last night? You did not. Now it's somewhere between smoky and completely forgotten. You climb. Carefully. Chimney is narrow, and the soot greets you like an old friend with boundary issues. Your robe catches. You twist, reach up, and there it is. The bread. Hardened, slightly blackened, and stuck to the brick like it grew there.
Ow.
You extract it. Bits crumble off like regrets. Back down, you place it near the bees. Not close, you're not reckless, but nearby enough to test a theory. They drift toward it cautiously, as if considering the theological implications. One lands, another joins. A third bee walks across the crust, pauses, then lifts off as though disappointed. Then the goat enters. You didn't leave your door open? You're sure of it? The goat is here nonetheless. A stubby, eternally hungry creature belonging to no one and everyone. It eyes the bread, then the bees, then you. You try to block it with your arm. The goat, unmoved, ducks under, grabs the bread, and bolts. You chase. The bees chase. Goat runs. You shout something deeply unmonastic. Brother Tekel sees you sprint past and raises an eyebrow so sharp it could shave parchment. The goat rounds the herb garden, knocks over a pot of blessed lavender, and disappears into the field. The bees do not follow. They return to your cell. Apparently they weren't in it for the bread after all. It's just the atmosphere. You return panting, arms scraped, robes stained with ash, soul hovering between penance and comedy. The bees are still on the shelf. You bow, offer them the last of your apple. They ignore it. They are not here for offerings, are here for reasons you do not and will not understand. They are monks in their way, mysterious, focused, deeply indifferent to your schedule. Feast days are supposed to be restful, joyful even. A break from the usual rhythm of toil and prayer. A time when the bells ring slightly longer, the bread is marginally softer, and the stew includes things that were not scraped from the bottom of the barrel. St. Aramel's Day in particular is meant to be sweet, both literally and metaphorically. He was, after all, the patron of bees, wax, and spiritual stickiness. So of course you are assigned to the honey bowl. It's ceremonial. It sits in the center of the refectory, carved from old acacia wood, lined with wax, and large enough to drown a medium-sized rabbit. Into it goes the best honey from the month's harvest. Dark, fragrant, and technically sacred. And you, of course, are the one in charge of ladling it, stirring it, and not dropping anything into it that can't be removed without a confession. You approach the task with reverence. You scrub your hands twice.
Ow.
You roll your sleeves not too high, not too low. You bow before lifting the lid, which sticks slightly, as if the bowl itself disapproves of being disturbed. A small puff of sweetness escapes, warm and dense, like a memory of summer trapped in a jar. The monks gather slowly. The feast won't begin until the honey is blessed, and the abbot is already making his way forward. You grip the ladle. It's long, wooden, and slightly warped from decades of pious stirring. The handle is slick. Your hands are still damp. You think about wiping them, you don't. You dip the ladle. You lift. You slip. It's not a dramatic fall. Nothing crashes. Nothing breaks. The ladle simply tilts at the wrong moment, and a glistening stream of honey arcs through the air like a comet made of failure. It lands on Brother Tekel. Not all of it, just enough to matter. It hits his shoulder, slides downward, finds its way into the fold of his robe, disappears. The refectory falls silent. He turns slowly. Eyes meet yours. Does not speak. He doesn't need to. Try to apologize, but your mouth makes the sound of someone gargling scripture. The abbot clears his throat. You resume stirring, very, very carefully. The blessing is brief. The meal begins. You sit on the far edge, next to the novice who sings too loud and chews like he's testing the structural integrity of each bite. Across the hall, Brother Tekel calmly dabs at his robe with a cloth. It's not working. The honey has committed. The bowl remains on the table, half empty. We're allowed a small spoonful, but you hesitate. The honey looks back at you, golden and smug. You take your spoonful, it drips. It drips onto your sleeve. Course it does. You sigh. The novice beside you says, "That's a blessing, isn't it?" When it sticks, do nod, because why not? Later, in your cell, you find a small bee sleeping in your sandal. You don't ask why. You simply nudge it gently to the edge, and it flies away, as if St. Ermel himself decided you'd had enough excitement for one day. You lie back. Your robe smells like sweetness and shame. Tomorrow, there will be more honey. More bees. Another chance to drop something sacred, when you will be ready. It begins, as so many regrettable ideas do, with rain. Not gentle rain. Not the kind that patters against windows and invites introspection. This is mountain rain, furious, wet, and aggressively horizontal. The sort that turns paths into rivers, roofs into drums, and monks into increasingly soggy question marks. It has been raining for 3 days now. The storage hut near the lower wall is beginning to buckle. The thatch roof, once proud and prickly, now sags like an overcooked pancake. Inside the hut are the manuscripts. Not all of them. The most sacred texts are kept in the main chapel, safely tucked into stone shelves and wrapped in oilcloth, like sleeping elders. But the rest, the faded saints' biographies, the herbal catalogs, the half-legible hymns written by monks who believed more in rhythm than spelling, are here, and they are starting to mold. You are not the librarian, are not even particularly trusted with ink, but you are the only one who noticed the leak, and that makes it your problem. He nods, frowns, and offers the single most dangerous phrase a religious superior can utter: use your judgment. And so you do. You attempt to move the scrolls, but the main hall is already full. The upper cells are damp. The kitchen is out. Of the question, a recent rodent incident rendered it a no-go zone for sacred objects. You need somewhere dry, somewhere protected, somewhere even rodents would hesitate to enter. You glance toward the APIR. Why, at first, the idea is absurd, blasphemous even. You shake your head. Then you think about it. Bees keep their hives bone dry. They seal every crack with wax. Nothing. Molds in a beehive. Nothing dares. Not even time. You inspect the hives. One is abandoned. The queen flew off 2 weeks ago and took the colony with her. The combs remain, hollowed and glistening. You reach in. It's empty, save for a few wax flakes and the quiet echo of potential. You return with a scroll. One of the precious ones, just an older hymn about fish and forgiveness. You roll it tightly, slide it into the cavity. It fits. You wait. Nothing stings, nothing hums. You exhale. Over the next hour. You repeat the process slowly, reverently. With the kind of care usually reserved for relics or eggs balanced on a spoon, each scroll goes into its waxy nest. It's time you expect resistance. It's time there is none. Eventually you run out of space and scrolls. The rain continues. But now you feel prepared. You sit beside the hive, damp but triumphant, smelling faintly of smoke and potential lawsuits. Brother Tekel appears. He stares at the hive. He stares at you. He says, "Ugh." You put the hymns. In the bees, you pause. You nod. He says nothing for a long time. Then they're not going to like that. You're not sure if he means the bees or the elders. You return to your cell. One scroll tucked under your arm. Just in case the hive develops theological opinions overnight. It doesn't take long for someone to notice, brother. Malaise is the kind of monk who catalogs things for fun. Parchments, ink pots, candle lengths, theological disagreements about punctuation if it has a shelf, and dust. He has written it down twice and underlined it once. He appears at your cell door just after terse, holding a damp scroll like it has personally insulted him. "What?" he asks. With the fragile calm of someone trying not to yell during a fast, "Have you done with the hymnals?" Don't. Answer immediately, because placed inside a vacant beehive is not a phrase that usually leads to peace. You offer tea. He declines. You offer silence. Accepts, then breaks it himself. I check the scriptorium, check the lower. Storage. I even check the kitchen, although the cheese incident still lingers. Then, I check the bees. He waits. You nod slowly. Carefully. And, you ask, as if hoping there might be a version of this story where he ends it himself. Perhaps with forgiveness, or at least mild acceptance. "They're in there," he says flatly. Scrolls, nestled in wax. One of them has bee legs on it. You say, "Bees are very clean." He doesn't laugh. "Of course not, he continues. Voice rising slightly. There are entire monastic doctrines about the proper handling of sacred texts. About dryness. About reverence. About not inserting the life of St. Geber Memphis Kittis into a waxy hole beside a bee that might interpret him as a threat. You shrugged. It was dry. It was safe. Safe. He lifts the scroll. It smells. Like smoke and flower spit. You correct him. Nectar. He glares. You lead him outside, hoping to demonstrate that everything remains technically intact. The hives stand quietly under the acacia trees. The bees hum, gentle but present. You approach slowly. He hesitates. You show him. It's one scroll. Carefully inserted, now visible just inside the comb. No damage. No mold. Just a little wax crust along. The edge like nature's commentary on margins. A single bee crawls across the parchment. Not aggressively, just walking. It pauses. Right at the line about divine silence. You both watch it for several seconds. It's reading. You say it's judging. He replies. You both stand there, unusually still, as if the bee's opinion might actually matter. Eventually, Brother Malaise sighs. The long kind, the kind. That suggests he's choosing not to report you. Yet, move them out, he says. At least the saints lives. Leave the cooking manuals if you must. You nod. He walks away muttering something about pollination theology that evening. You extract half the scrolls. Leave the most damaged ones. They seem content. One has fused slightly to the comb. It's an old recipe for lentil ash porridge. No great loss. The bee is still there. Same scroll. Same verse. You wonder if it has chosen it. You wonder if bees believe in silence. You do not ask, Brother Malaise. You fished your luck enough for one day. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. It's the season of visitors, which means once a month, sometimes less. Sometimes more. A figure appears on the path below the monastery, waving from a distance, as if trying to appear non-threatening, while carrying a bag large enough to smuggle a goat. This month, it's a merchant, a familiar one. He sells salt, ink, dried fish, and rumors, though not always in that order. You are asked to meet him, not because you're senior. You're not. But because the abbot once saw you negotiate 3 onions and a rusted lantern out of the man with nothing more than persistent silence, and a gaze you later learned was caused by mild indigestion. He seems to like you, or at least distrust you slightly less than the others. You meet at the gate. He offers dried apricots. You decline. He offers a small cask of honey, probably not from monks, probably not pure, definitely not blessed. You pretend to consider, then gesture at your robes and say, "We make our own." He laughs, because of course he knows. He's seen monks return from harvest with swollen hands and faces that look like they've lost a fight with a floral ghost. Then he presents a letter. It's sealed. Not with ribbon or wax alone, but with wax mixed with something that makes your breath stop for half a beat. Beeswax. Real, golden, fragrant, the kind used to polish relics and scent prayer rooms. But this isn't from your hives. You'd know this smells. Lighter, less smoke, more sun. Like a garden that hasn't prayed in months. You hold it carefully. The merchant shrugs. It's a monastery in the west. They're experimenting. The wax holds blessings better than ink. Nod, but don't reply. Your fingers run along the seal. It's embossed with a crude icon, a cross, slightly off-center, surrounded by tiny flower petals. You take it to the abbot. He reads it slowly, lips barely moving, then hands it back. Keep the seal, he says. The letter can be copied. So you do. You remove the seal with a warm blade. Place it on your shelf. Later that night, you find yourself sniffing it. Not deeply, just a polite inhalation. It smells like fields. Like a day without wind. Like bees who have never seen a monastery would be confused by your rules. The next morning, you melt it. Not because you're careless, but because the novice in charge of candles dropped an entire bundle into the fire, and now the vesper. Flames are stuttering like old men trying to remember their own prayers. You offer the wax. The flame takes it immediately. The chapel smells briefly of apricots and apology. No one mentions it, but as you leave, Brother Gashaw passes you. His sleeves, as always, are pristine. He glances toward the altar, sniffs once, and then says, "A new blend?" You nod. He says nothing else. But his nose twitches again. That evening, your dreams are oddly sweet. You do not remember them clearly. Just warmth and wings. And a scroll you couldn't open because it was still alive. There's a shelf in the north corner of the old scriptorium that doesn't exist. Not officially. Not on any diagrams, scroll logs. Or Brother Malay's infamously detailed shelf-by-shelf inventory of sacred and semi-sacred texts. It was carved into the wall years ago, maybe decades, back when the walls were still soft enough to shape and nobody had yet invented the rule of shelving decency. Now it sits behind a faded tapestry depicting Saint Aramel confronting a wasp with nothing but a sandal and a firm frown. You found it by accident. A slip of parchment had fluttered behind the tapestry during a drafty vespers, and as you reached to retrieve it, your hand knocked against wood, hidden, dull, and hollow. Inside the niche are scrolls, maybe 5, maybe 7, depending on how tightly you count the ones that have fused together over time. Their bindings are waxy, their edges curled and dark. They smell like lemon balm, smoke, and poor decisions. You open one, slowly, carefully, the text. Inside is legible, but only just. The ink has bled, runs slightly along the grain of the parchment. Warped in the places where the wax tried to preserve and instead embraced too tightly. Each letter trembles at the edge of becoming illegible. Few are already gone, dissolved into memory or bee footprint smudges. You suspect someone tried to preserve them long ago, using the same logic you used with the hive. Wax seals out. Moisture prevents decay, discourages rodents and monks with careless fingers. But wax is heat sensitive. Someone, at some point, stored a candle too close. You return the scroll, leave the others undisturbed. Then you find the bees. Not many. 3, maybe 4. Nestled into the corner near the stone, as if they too have secrets to read. One stirs slowly, like it's dreaming. You wonder if bees can remember scripture. They see the shapes as flowers. If their movement along the margins is interpretation or instinct, you speak to them softly. A verse. A fragment of something you half remember. The voice of the Lord is over the waters. The bees do not reply, but they remain. And that is something you consider telling Brother Malays. Briefly then, you remember the last time. You altered shelving arrangements without proper documentation, and how long he refused to speak to you except through footnotes. Instead, you take one scroll, the worst damaged, and attempt to repair. You melt a small amount of wax. The beeswax. Kind. The kind that smells faintly of warmth and memory. You brush it along the torn edge with a reed. Parchment curls, then relaxes. You breathe. The letter forms shimmer, but do not smear. The ink remains. Just barely. You return the scroll. The bees haven't moved. You place a drop of honey on the edge of the niche. Not as a bribe, or like an offering. A silent pact between archivist and insect. Later, you dream of letters fluttering like wings, of verses buzzing through the air. When you wake, there's wax on your fingers and a word written on your sleeve in pollen. You do not try to read it. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk you. Wake to bells. Not the usual bells, not the gentle melodic ones that coax monks from dreams and into cold corridors with a soft sense of inevitability. These bells are urgent, sharp. They don't ring so much as accuse. You sit up too quickly and hit your head on the shelf. Fire, that's your first thought. Then, not again. You throw on your robe, still slightly stiff from yesterday's rain, and rush into the hallway. Other monks emerge from their cells, blinking. Wrapped in wool and confusion, Brother Tekel is already moving toward the stairs. His expression is grim and mildly disappointed, as though the emergency itself is misbehaving. Smoke curls from the direction of the lower. Sprue, you follow. It's not flames, not yet, but it's close. One of the novices, in a moment of deep theological misunderstanding, placed a candle too near a pile of aging vellum, wax-dripped, apricot. And now, the edge of the room glows with heat and an overwhelming scent of guilt. Buckets arrive. Sand is thrown. Robes flap. Prayers stutter mid-sentence as the monks work to contain the blaze without angering the fire, the saints, or brother. Malaise, who is now muttering something that sounds like an inventory audit done through clenched teeth. You help. Of course you help. You stamp. You toss. You grab at curling corners of manuscript, rescuing what you can. The room steams and hisses. The fire loses interest. Eventually, it's out. Only then do you notice. One scroll is missing. Not any scroll. That scroll. The one you restored. The one that shimmered faintly under wax. The one that smelled like lemon balm and possibly revelation. Gone, you check the niche. Empty, you check your robe. Sticky, but not helpful. You check the air. There is a bee. Just one. Hovering near the spot where the scroll once lay. Turning in slow circles, as if remembering something, you watch it land. Not on paper, not on wax, but on the stone itself. It walks in a small pattern, back and forth, then pauses. You swear it looks at you. You crouch. The bee lifts off, circles. Once, then flies away. You follow. Not immediately. That would be undignified. But 5 minutes later, after muttering something about needing air, you step outside. The bee is gone, but you do find a scrap of parchment caught in the grass near the edge of the orchard, scorched, brittle but marked with ink that still clings to the fibers like truth after doubt. It's a single word. Listen. You pocket it. That night, you speak to the abbot. He listens, more than usual. You describe the missing scroll, the bee. The word he says nothing for a long while. Then he nods. There are messages, he says, that do not wait for scribes. The next morning, you place a new scroll in the hive. Blank. Waiting, the bees return. One lands. It pauses. You. Whisper, your turn. Asterisk, asterisk, every seventh day you do not speak. It's not a punishment. It's a tradition, a vow observed in shifts, shared among the brothers like lentils in a stew. Some take it seriously. Others take it as an opportunity to nap longer and gesture with increasing theatricality. You observe it as best you can, though your face tends to betray thoughts your mouth works hard to suppress on other days. This particular day of silence begins with spilled ink. The novice assigned to refill the well dropped the entire jar. A fat clay vessel, precious and poorly balanced, across the refectory floor before sunrise. Now the entryway smells like soot and crushed flowers. And half the scroll work scheduled for copying has been postponed while Brother Malaise weeps quietly into a rag. You are handed an inkless pen and told, through a sequence of urgent pointing, gestures to practice form without content. Muscle memory. Sacred calligraphy without meaning. You nod. You do not argue. You retreat to the far alcove, where the light is good and the distractions minimal. In front of you, a scroll. Clean. Smooth. Perfectly blank. You begin. The nib glides across the page. No ink, just intention. Each stroke silent, each flourish invisible but felt.
Das.
A ghost of language that exists only in your hand and somewhere deep in the
Ja.
imagination of paper. Then the bee arrives. It lands on the scroll, right in the middle. Of the fourth line of pretend text, you pause. Wait. It does not move. You gently slide the pen aside. The bee twitches, walks a few steps, then stops. You continue around it. The bee moves again. Not away, but along your motion. Following, matching, as if trying to read what you haven't written. You finish the line. Exhale. The bee crawls to the next. By midday, your scroll has become a pattern of impressions, faint grooves from the pen dust from the air, and small trails where bee feet have polished the parchment smooth. Nothing is written, yet it feels full. Brother Tekel passes, stees the scroll, stees the bee, raises an eyebrow, leaves. You sigh silently again. At vespers, you roll the scroll, place it on the shelf with the others. No one questions its blankness. No one reads it that night. You dream of it. In the dream, the scroll glows. Letters rise from the page, drawn not in ink, but in wax and pollen. The words shift, rearrange. They do not settle into sentences. They hum. A low, sweet sound like bees inside a hollow log, singing secrets to the wood. You wake. The scroll is still. Blank. You touch it. It's warm. The bee is asleep in your inkwell. You do not wake it. You sit beside it, whisper a psalm that doesn't. Need ink and begin again? Pen hovering, silence loud, wings folded and waiting. There is a room rarely entered, tucked behind the main chapel wall. Not quite a chamber, not quite a closet, more like a spatial afterthought made sacred by accident. They call it the Wax Library. Not officially, of course. Officially it has no name, which makes it both less and more important at the same time. But everyone knows what it contains. Shelves lined with wax-coated scrolls. Not sealed. Coated. A tradition older than anyone can date, possibly born of mold. Superstition. Or one particularly clever monk who once dropped a scroll into melted wax and decided to call it providence instead of clumsiness. Now it's a practice. A layer of beeswax brushed thin across each parchment to protect it from damp insects, and novices with butter on their fingers. You've been invited, or rather assigned to assist in cleaning. Dust lightly, says Brother Gashaw, passing you a cloth so soft it's barely cloth at all. Don't scratch, don't smudge, don't sneeze. He walks away. You nod to no one. The wax library smells like old paper. Warm honey, and whatever time itself would smell like if it had been politely bottled and forgotten behind a shelf. It is quiet, too quiet. You almost wish for a cough. Footstep. A goat even. But nothing comes. Just the occasional flicker of candlelight against the walls, and the constant, spoken pressure not to ruin anything. You begin at the top, gently brushing each scroll one by one. Wax flakes slightly like dandruff from a very calm candle. You work slowly, reverently, and then halfway through the second shelf. You see it? The misplaced psalm? You recognize the script. Your own, from 3 years ago. A scribing assignment. That went unwell. You had miswritten a line about mercy, turning it into something that, in context, implied divine nausea. The scroll was quietly removed. You assumed it had been repurposed as kindling, but here it is, coated in wax. Carefully. Labeled. Shelved between lamentations. Minor and prayer for wet weather. You stare. You should report it or remove it. Or at least recopy it properly. Instead, you blow on it. A mistake. Your nose tickled by ancient dust and divine embarrassment. Chooses that exact moment to betray you. You sneeze loudly, powerfully, historically. Wax dust explodes off the shelves. Scrolls shift. One tumbles. You lunge. You miss. It lands with a soft, devastating thud, and a sound not unlike a sigh. You retrieve it. The edge has crumpled. The wax is cracked. Brother Tekel appears in the doorway like a summoned spirit. He looks at you. He looks at the scroll. He sighs. Deeply you begin a sentence, "I was only." But he lifts a hand. No, just that. He picks up the scroll, inspects the damage, turns to leave, then pauses. "I always liked that version," he says. "The one where God was seasick." He leaves. You blink. You return to dusting. Slower now, more carefully. The wax library forgives slowly, but it does. Seem to forgive at the end of the hour. You find a tiny footprint in one waxy corner. A bee has walked across the shelf. It's just once. Just enough. You leave it. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Every monastery has secrets. Not the dramatic kind. Not heresies or forbidden romances or vaults filled with relics. Nobody is supposed to know about. No. The more common secrets are small, mundane, embarrassing, in a very quiet, very holy way. And in this monastery, the worst-kept secret is the smuggled recipe scroll tucked into the hymnal cupboard under the third shelf, behind a particularly uninspiring chant called "A Prayer for Muddy Sandals." You've known about it for years. Everyone has. But no one talks about it. Officially, food scrolls are stored separately, kept with the herbal records and the dietary logs, indexed under bodily maintenance, non-miraculous. But someone, long ago, slid this one in among the sacred texts, and there it stayed, nestled next to Psalms. It's marinated in incense. It's a recipe for honey-cooked barley flatcakes. Rich, dense, folded 3 times, with a soft crust and a smell that suggests someone briefly remembered joy before biting in. The instructions are precise, slightly smug. There's a note at the top in red ink, to be used on feast days or other occasions of unbearable sadness. You open the scroll to copy it, just for safekeeping, of course. The wax on its edge is old, yellowed, cracked at the folds. As your pen hovers, you notice something odd. Along the bottom margin, not part of the original writing, are a series of tiny marks. At first, they seem like smudges, and footprints, then letters, not in your script, not in any known hand, but carefully placed, as though someone or something had dipped tiny feet in pollen and walked in deliberate, almost legible patterns. You fetch a magnifier. The letters are crooked, but they are. Letters .b .o .r . And then the trail veers off the scroll. You look around. The shelf behind you is empty. The bees are nowhere in sight. You whisper, "Before what?" No answer. Obviously, you copy the recipe, carefully rewrap the scroll. Return it to its improper place behind muddy sandals. Then, because your curiosity is louder than your obedience, you head to the kitchen. You prepare the recipe. Barley, water, a pinch of salt, and honey, golden, unblessed, but generous as it cooks. The scent spreads through the monastery corridors like a rumor. Slow, warm, sticky, 2 novices appear. Then 3. One tries to look casual, but his mouth is already slightly open, as though preparing to receive grace by osmosis. You break the flat cake, share the pieces. The taste is soft, familiar, slightly nostalgic, like you've eaten it before. In a dream you forgot to wake from. No one speaks. No one needs to. Later, you return to your cell. On your mat, a single bee waits. It does not move. You do not swat it. You bow slightly. Whisper before. It lifts off, circles once, then vanishes. You sit. You listen to the silence. You write nothing. Some scrolls write themselves when they're ready. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. It begins with Brother Melee's misplacing, something which is, in itself, a historical event. Man has been known to remember the precise number of candle stubs left unburned during a lightning storm 5 winters ago. Yet today he is standing in the scriptorium rubbing his temples, as if trying to extract memory like oil from a stubborn olive. "I had it here," he mutters. "Third shelf. Second row, wrapped in blue cloth. It's a commentary on St. Abun's lesser miracles. It included the footnote about the goat that sang. You, having just entered with a scroll of your own, pause mid-step. The one with the wax cover," he points at you. "Yes, that one. You've seen it. If 3 weeks ago, tucked behind the wax-coated hymnals, you'd noticed the scroll, its wax flaking slightly at the corners, a faint scent of time clinging to it, like a memory no one owned. You didn't open it, just made a note, returned it. But now it's gone. Together, you begin to search. Shelves, baskets, behind Brother Tekel's desk, which contains precisely 3 quills, 1 map of questionable geography, and a folded note. That reads, 'Do not open unless you're bored enough to sin.' It's nothing. You think to check the Beehive? Not seriously. It's not with full belief. But because at this point, the bees took it, feels only slightly less plausible than Brother. Melee's lost it. You walk out to the apiary. The hives hum with their usual serenity-tinged menace. You don't expect to find the scroll. You expect silence, a bit of buzzing, and the faint scent of old wax and newer problems. But there it is, just the end of it, sticking out from the corner of the empty. Hive, the one the queen abandoned last. Season, the one you keep meaning to repurpose but haven't touched. You pull it gently. It resists, then gives. You unroll it. It's still coated in wax, but the ink is. Missing, not smeared, not burned, not faded, just absent. The parchment is unmarked, clean as a novice's first robe. But you remember it. You remember the note, the verse about the goat, funny drawing in the margin. It was all there, and now nothing. You take it back inside. Brother Melee's gasps. "It's been erased," he says. "No," you reply, "it's just sleeping." He gives you a look usually reserved for theological speculation that mentions vegetables. You place the scroll on the table. Fetch a candle. Hold it near. Not touching, just close enough to warm. Slowly, faintly, words begin to rise, like breath. On cold glass, like memory deciding to return, they shimmer, wobble, settle. Not all the words return, but enough. The goat verse reappears. The footnote twitches into legibility. The margin image becomes, once again, it's an animal halfway between blessing and mistake. You smile. Brother Melee's breathes out like a man, pardoned by Providence. You leave him there. Outside, the bees are still, watching you whisper, "Thank you." You're not sure who it's for, but someone always listens. There comes a point in every monk's life when he must rewrite something he does not. Remember writing? It happens on a morning that begins, like most others, with the smell of damp stone. It's a faint scrape of sandals in the hallway, and the echo of a bell that never seems entirely sure whether it's announcing a blessing or an inconvenience. You are given a scroll and a task. "Copy this," says Brother Gashau, handing it to you with the expression of a man who has been handing scrolls to people since before anyone wrote down the rules for it. You take it. It's brittle. Wrapped in oilcloth, the wax seal is cracked, but still clinging. It's like a child refusing to let go of an old toy. You unwrap it. The handwriting is familiar. Very familiar. It is yours, except you don't remember writing it. Not yesterday. Not last week. Not ever. The first few lines are a strange blend of scripture and instruction, a verse about wind, a line about collecting wax in cold months. A footnote that reads simply, "Remember the bee?" You glance up. Hoping for a smirk from someone watching? Nothing. Just Brother Gashau walking away, sleeves spotless as usual. Probably unaware that he's just handed you a scroll written by your own hand that you do not recall composing. You sit, begin to copy. The strokes are familiar, too familiar. Your pen moves without thought, as though your hand is tracing the shadow of an earlier motion. You pause. The scroll crackles slightly. You lean closer. The ink, still dark, smells faintly of crushed rosemary and something you can only call effort. Then you hear it. A. Buzz.1b. Alone, drifting lazily into the scriptorium like it owns. The place it circles once. Twice lands on the corner of the original scroll. You wave your hand. It doesn't move. You lean in, takes a step forward onto the margin. Then the footnote in your hand. You freeze. It doesn't sting. Just sits, then crawls to the fresh copy. Perches on the uncopied space. Waits. You sigh. You're not subtle. You resume writing. The B stays for the entire scroll. Line after line, paragraph after paragraph. Your hand starts to ache. Your neck stiffens. The B does not move. You reach the final line. The last 3 words, leave it here. You hesitate. Write them. Period at the end. You look at the bee, it lifts off, flies once around your head, and leaves. You do. 2. You leave the scroll on the desk, just as instructed. You walk outside. You sit on the low wall beneath the fig tree. The air is warm, and the day is soft at the edges. Brother Tekel passes, nods once. Doesn't ask later. Someone else will take the scroll. Or not. You don't know. What you do know is this. Sometimes memory lives in your hand, not your mind. Sometimes bees are better editors than monks, and sometimes the line between scripture and whisper is thin and winged. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. It begins with aching feet. You have been walking since sunrise, through dust, through heat, through a path so winding, it feels like it was designed by a drunk goat and then approved by 3 saints who never walked anywhere themselves. The pilgrimage is supposed to be sacred, a journey of faith, reflection, humility, and maybe it is. But it is also long, uphill, and suspiciously lacking in anything resembling shade. The shrine is near, at least. That's what Brother Tekel said an hour ago, with the same tone he used last month when he declared, it's only a short fast. Before you all spent 3 days chewing boiled nettles and pretending to be grateful, the mountain levels off. A narrow cleft appears between 2 stone ridges. It doesn't look like much, just a crack in a rock face, the sort of place goats disappear into and monks politely avoid. But inside is cool air, the faint scent of old wax, and silence. You enter. The shrine is small. More of a hollow, really. But it holds what you came to see, a cross, not a stone one, not woodbuck. Wax roughly carved. Faded at the edges. Melted slightly on the right side. Where someone once placed a candle too close or prayed too hot. You kneel before it. The others join you, slowly whispering, verses that sound like wind more than speech. You stare at the cross. It's not symmetrical. The top arm is slightly bent. One side bears a thumbprint. Someone's, from long ago. Maybe the maker's, maybe a worshipper's, maybe someone who carried it up the mountain and set it here because they had nowhere else to put what they believed. You lean closer. The wax is yellowed with age, flakes at the corners. But somehow, still whole, still present. You wonder how it hasn't melted entirely, how the heat, the insects, the centuries haven't claimed it. Then you notice the base, a beeswax disc. Not attached, just resting there, almost like a candle. But it isn't. It's shaped like a foot, a child's foot, clearly molded, smoothed by time. Placed intentionally, you say nothing. You reach for your satchel. Pull out the cloth pouch you were told to bring without explanation. Inside, another beeswax cross, new, clean, unbent. You place it beside the old one. It doesn't match. It shines too brightly. It smells like hope without memory still. It belongs. You step back. Someone lights a taper. Smoke curls around the wax. It does not melt. Not yet. After the prayers, you linger. Everyone else files out. Brother Tekel nods once, leaves you alone. You crouch beside the cross. The thumbprint is clearer now. The wax remembered it differently in the flicker of free lick. The wax is soft. The wax is soft. It's just slightly. You pull away. Your print is there. A twin beside a ghost. You do not tell anyone. Some prayers aren't spoken. Some offerings aren't taken. Some crosses don't hang. You wait. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. It's supposed to be a day of rest. That's what the rota says. One red mark beside your name indicating. You are free from field work, wax brushing, and cataloging. No scrolls, no hives, no copying. Just a quiet day to pray, reflect, and maybe fix your sandal strap before it fully disintegrates and embarrasses you during procession. You plan accordingly. You lay out your patch kit. You heat a small pot of water. You even locate your other sandal, which has been serving as a doorstop for the last 2 weeks and is now shaped more like a question than a shoe. Then Brother Malaise appears. Of course, he enters your cell the way he always does, silently. A thought you didn't invite, holding a scroll and a frown so intense it deserves its own footnote, he says. Someone has placed a melted devotional icon in the relic drawer. You stare, he continues, undersea for Coptic, which is not where it belongs. Because it's not a classified relic, it's beeswax. And also, he opens the cloth bundle dramatically. It has a bite taken out of it. You blink? A bite? He nods grimly. A small one. Upper corner? Incisor, I believe. You inspect it. The cross is faint, nearly melted into a vague impression. One corner does appear. Compromised. Gnawed, almost. You resist the urge to ask whether he's compared it to the dental records of the novices, brother. Malaise mutters, it's disrespectful. It's disorderly. And someone placed it inside a pouch, labeled liturgical misc. That's not a category. You almost say it should be. But you're not ready for the consequences of that kind of heresy before breakfast. He places the relic on your shelf. Deal with it, he says, and vanishes. You look at the wax. It's old. Definitely. Handmade. Clearly, there are faint marks. Not symbols exactly, but scratches that suggest intent. Perhaps once, someone prayed with it in their pocket. Perhaps once, someone carried it across a desert and forgot it wasn't food. You light a taper hold. It near the wax softens. Not too liquid, just a memory. Scratches come forward slightly. You don't read them. You don't want to. The bite mark glistens. You wrap it in fresh cloth. Not to hide it, just to give it dignity. You don't return it to the drawer. You walk it to the shrine alcove instead. Place it beside the crooked beeswax cross. Leans naturally, as if it remembers this. Position from before. You return to your cell. Pat your sandal. Burn your finger slightly on the kettle. The wax smell lingers, faint and strange, like incense made from forgotten things. You wonder who bit it, not why, just who. You wonder if they meant to. The visiting scribe arrives on a Thursday, which already puts everyone in a foul mood. Thursday is supposed to be quiet, a liminal day, too far from feast, too near to laundry. You're in the middle of folding a robe that smells like damp, wool, and theological resignation when the bell rings. Out. 2 short peels. 1 long outsider, someone says. You shuffle into the courtyard along with the others. The scribe is already there, narrow, neat, holding a ledger that seems to judge you before he even opens it. He bows, smiles, says he's here to verify sacred storage for external documentation purposes. No one knows what that means. You suspect it means he doesn't trust you. Brother Gashaw gives him a short tour. Brother Tekel offers a tight smile and a tighter nod. You, unfortunately, are assigned to assist with the artifact list. This means 3 hours in the side chapel, okay? Opening drawers you didn't know existed, removing bundles wrapped in 7 layers of cloth, and occasionally encountering an object that radiates such mysterious importance. You instinctively bow before realizing it's just a melted candle with a blessed label. Halfway through the task, the scribe pauses, points to a plain wooden box on the bottom shelf. Listed, he says. You open it. Inside is a beeswax cross, larger than most. Pale, unadorned. Cracks running through the middle like veins that forgot which direction to grow. It looks like it's trying to remember what shape it used to be. You glance at the inventory scroll. Nothing. The scribe frowns. No record. You shrug. He He pokes the wax gently with his stylus. Soft. You wince. He jots something in his ledger. Unknown. Devotional item. Possibly damaged. You flinch. It's not damaged. He raises an eyebrow. It's structurally compromised. You stare at the cross, then say without quite knowing why, it's in prayer. He blinks. You close the box. Wrap it again. Set it aside. Quietly. Later that evening, you return. Open the box. The wax has shifted. Not much, but enough. The arms are slightly straighter. The base more level. Cracks have not disappeared, but they have. Softened. As if warmed. As if soothed. You light a small taper. Hold it near. The surface catches the light. The cracks gleamed faintly. It's not flaws now, just evidence. You do not touch it. You leave it uncovered on the altar for the night. By morning, the scribe is gone. The box. Remains no entry is made. Some crosses refuse to be listed. Some prayers are not filed, and some relics, even cracked and slightly slumped, hold their shape not through structure but through memory and wax. In the quiet refusal to disappear, asterisk, 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 it happens while you're sweeping. Not reverently. Not as a sacred act of service, just the kind of sweeping one does when there are no other duties left to dodge and too many watchful elders nearby. The chapel vestibule hasn't been properly swept in weeks. Dust gathers like theology, slow, stubborn, and ready to make someone sneeze during a moment of solemnity. You nudge the broom into a corner that always looks empty, but never is. Dust curls up in small clouds, a feather, a beetle, an unidentifiable crumb that might be holy or just very old bread. And then, a hollow knock, not stone. Would you drop to one knee? Brush aside the detritus of forgotten footfalls, and there it is, a niche, half hidden beneath a warped panel. Small, square, carved roughly into the wall. So old it seems to be surviving out of spite. Is a beeswax cross. You unwrap it slowly. The wax is nearly black from age, like amber that gave up. The cross is thin, not fragile, exactly, but strained. The arms bow slightly inward, like it's bracing for bad news. There's something carved into the center. Not a figure, not quite a letter. It's just a spiral, delicate, uneven. You squint then. The whisper comes, not loud, not even sound, really. Just the sensation that a name has been spoken nearby, one you used to know. It tugs at the edge of memory like a sleeve in a crowd. You turn. No one's there. You stare at the spiral again. The light shifts. The wax catches it oddly, not reflecting, not absorbing, just glowing. Not brightly, not enough to read by, just enough to feel something. Like warmth on skin that hasn't been touched in a long time. You wrap it again, take it to the abbot. He unwraps it, blinks, sniffs the wax. Old, he says. Older than old, you reply. He runs a thumb across the spiral. From the Highlands, he mutters. Before the annex, before the formal liturgies. He hands it back. You found it. It's yours to keep. You blink. It's a relic. He nods. So are most of us. You take it to your cell, place it on the window. It sits there all evening, not doing anything. Not doing anything, not moving, just glowing. Once a bee lands beside it, it stays for hours when it leaves. Notice something odd. The cross has changed slightly. One arm has straightened. The spiral is deeper, more deliberate. You don't know if you imagine that, but you don't. Touch it. You don't show anyone. Some relics aren't meant to be venerated, some are meant to be watched, and some are watching you right back. Asterisk, asterisk, the crate arrives, unannounced. No warning. No letter. Just a donkey with dust in its ears and a cart driver who insists he was told only to deliver it, not to explain it. The box is nailed shut, stained with something sweet, and smells faintly of cloves, sweat, and forgotten intentions. A wax seal hangs askew on one corner, not official, not ecclesiastical, just the kind of seal someone uses when they want something to feel important without committing to full sanctity. You are told to open it naturally. Brother Tekel points to the crate and says Gondor, as if that alone answers every question. Then he leaves. You fetch a crowbar. The wood creaks, splinters, the smell intensifies, a mixture of myrrh, damp linen, and something sticky that might have once been fruit or might have been part of the donkey. Inside, bundles, wrapped in waxed cloth. Folded tightly, each bundle. Marked with a symbol, not letters, not icons, just shapes. Some triangles, some crescents. One that looks like a tooth, which you hope is a metaphor. You unwrap the first. It's a beeswax cross. No surprise there, but this one is wide, flat, thick. Its surface etched shallowly with marks that at first seem decorative. Then directional, you hold it to the light. A pattern begins to emerge. Not sacred geometry, not mystical doodles. A map of where. You're not sure? You fetch Brother Malaise? Against your better judgment, he arrives with 3 scrolls, a magnifying lens, and the air of someone who assumes you've done something wrong. He examines the cross, squints, blinks, sniffs it. It's melting, he says. You nod. It was warmer in Gondor. Doesn't laugh. Together, you lay it flat. The lines are clearer now. A river, a curve. What might be a series of mountains or just someone's attempted embellishment. At the bottom, a tiny circle inside it. Faintly pressed, a single word. You lean closer. Reads, here. Shh. You both stare at it for several seconds. Then Brother Malaise says, that's unhelpful. You agree. Still, you trace the pattern onto parchment. Carefully, line by line. The wax softens further as you work, as though remembering its own shape after being held too long. When you finish, the cross is no longer flat. It is slumped. The edges sag. The carvings blur. You set it in a bowl, gently, to hold its form. That night, you place the copy on your shelf. You dream of rivers, not grand ones, small. Winding half-forgotten streams that curl between hills and under trees. Always heading towards something they never quite reach. When you wake, the bowl is empty. The wax has vanished. No trace. No stain. Just the faintest scent of honey and salt. You search briefly, and stop. Some maps aren't meant to be followed. Some are meant to disappear after being seen. And some are drawn for hands that no longer exist. It's the Feast of the First Light, one of those minor monastic occasions that somehow involves both fasting and fire. The rules are vague, inherited from a document so faded that its title has become a suggestion. The abbot declares that it shall be honored with silence, candlelight, and a procession up the east path to the prayer stone. You, being a moderately reliable walker and in possession of a robe that no longer trips you on inclines, are included. The candles are prepared. That morning, beeswax. Naturally, yet, poured into narrow molds, pressed with the faint image of a cross. Each monk carries one. They are not to be lit until the procession reaches the stone. This rule, repeated 3 times, is meant to ensure solemnity and avoid premature enlightenment. You're halfway up the trail before you realize yours is different. It's heavier, thicker, the base slightly uneven, the surface smooth, but with something beneath a line, a shape, a texture that feels like memory. Wearing a mask, you look closer. It's not a candle, it's a cross. Formed like a candle, yes, but not hollow. Not prepared for flame? You pause, the others pass you. No one notices. You touch the top gently with your thumb. No wick. You glance around. The procession continues. A slow trail of robes and murmured breath heading up the path like smoke with sandals. You step aside. Kneel under an olive tree whose trunk looks older than language. The air smells of dust, leaves, and beeswax warmed by indecision. You unwrap the cloth from your sleeve. Wrap the cross. Place it gently in the nook between 2 roots. Not buried, not hidden, just placed. Then you stand, Rejoin the line and say nothing at the stone. The candles are lit. Flames flicker in the wind, brief and brave. Some blow out. Some sputter. Yours, the replacement one handed to you from the basket, burns quickly. Dripping onto your wrist like a mild scolding, the psalm is read. It's supposed to be about light, about morning, about divine illumination. The novice misreads it. He says, "Let thy wax not fail," instead of "let thy works not fail." No one corrects him. The abbot raises an eyebrow. "Brother." Tekol closes his eyes with the expression of someone reciting a footnote internally. You suppress a smile after the prayer. The flames are doused. The procession descends. You linger. Return to the tree. The cross is gone. No sign. No waxy residue. Not even a trail of insects or the usual telltale scent of forgotten sacraments. Just one bee, sitting on the branch. Above you, look at it. It looks at you, then flies away. You bow slightly. Walk back slowly. Sometimes you think things are carried up the mountain not to be offered, but to be returned. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. You weren't supposed to be in the workshop. It's not forbidden exactly, just strongly discouraged. The waxmaker, Brother Naol, is notoriously particular about his tools, ingredients, and the volume of other people's breathing in his workspace. He works alone. He works in silence. He once asked a novice to leave the room for sighing too, close to the ladles, but today, Brother Naol is gone. It's called down to the village to inspect a beehive someone swears is producing wax in the shape of the Virgin's foot. You're told to keep an eye on the cauldron. Just keep it warm, they said. Just stir it occasionally, they said. Do not add anything, they said. So naturally, trip and drop a relic fragment directly into the wax. It's a small splinter of wood. Harmless. It's harmless until it slides beneath the golden surface and disappears like a theological metaphor waiting to happen. You panic. You fetch a spoon. You stir. Gently, as if hoping the relic will float back up on its own. It doesn't. Instead, as the wax darkens, thickens, smells faintly of basil and something older than rules. You ladle it out into the nearest mold. One meant for devotional crosses. The mold is misaligned. You press it anyway. Seal it. Whisper a prayer you barely remember an hour later. No. Brother Nail returns. He sniffs the air, frowns, looks at you. You offer him the mold. He opens it. The cross inside is crooked, leaning, asymmetrical, the top arm shorter than the bottom. The left side warped, as though trying to walk away from itself. He holds it up, says nothing, then softly. It looks tired. You nod. It had a long day. He places it on the table. The wax is still warm. The scent stronger now, basil. Yes, but also clove. And maybe a memory of wood smoke. Brother Naol steps back. It's wrong. You say it's honest. He does not reply. But he doesn't melt it down either. The next morning, the cross is gone. You assume it was discarded until you enter the prayer alcove, and there it is, propped gently against the wall between two candles. Its slanted posture giving it the appearance of bowing. You step closer. There's a thumbprint on. The back yours, pressed into the wax while it was still cooling. It shouldn't matter, but it does. You touch it again. The cross doesn't straighten, doesn't glow, doesn't hum, but it stays, leaning quiet, present. People begin visiting it. No official recognition, no incense, no mention in the relic inventory, just monks, pausing, sitting. Beside it, leaning slightly themselves, Brother Tekel calls it the Weary Cross. The name sticks. You never admit what you dropped into that. Wax, no one asks. Some relics are born from mistakes, some prayers are answered sideways, and some sanctity arrives leaning. Asterisk, asterisk, the problem began with the reliquary, or more precisely, with the reliquary's contents, which according to its slightly faded label, oust the incisor of St. Gabriel of the Dust Path, patron of dry journeys, cracked heels, and hopeful pilgrims. The relic was usually kept sealed, tucked away in the western chapel behind a locked box, and 3 modest layers of ecclesiastical obscurity. But this morning, it's missing. Not the whole box, just the tooth. Brother Malaise is livid, Brother Tikal is calm. You are, unfortunately, within arm's reach of both. Gone, Malaise mutters, pacing, hands clenched. You cannot just misplace a saint's tooth. Tekal raises a brow. Perhaps it walked. You do not laugh. That would only make things worse. Then someone finds something odd in the candle room. A wax, cross small, pale, smelling faintly of rosemary and something else. You're summoned. Again, the cross is placed in your hands. It's still slightly soft at the edges, clearly fresh. It's poorly molded. Lopsided, you turn it over there, embedded neatly in the base, a tooth white, intact, suspiciously. Prominent, you sigh. Someone tried to embed a relic in a devotional wax cross. Why, you ask aloud? Brother Gashaw offers a theory, to sanctify a batch, Brother Malaise, to avoid recataloguing it.
Ah, Brother Tekal.
After sniffing it gently, too. Chew on during fasting. You stare at him, he shrugs. Don't pretend monks don't chew things they shouldn't. I once caught a novice gnawing a palm frond during Lent. You examine the cross more closely. It's cleanly made, despite the lopsided lean. The tooth is pressed in gently, as though added in the last moment. Like a garnish to an already regrettable recipe, there's a faint print beside the tooth. Someone's finger. You resist checking your own. You light a taper. Hold it near. The wax warms, softens. The cross leans, slightly more. A bead of wax drips down the side and lands on the floor with the quietest plup of guilt you've ever heard. You carry the cross. To the abbot, he looks at it, turns it over once. Curious, he says. Then what's the ruling on digestible relics? You blink. He smiles faintly. No matter, he says. Seal it. Place it near the door. Let people decide for themselves. So, the cross ends up on a shelf by the entrance. No sign. No explanation. Just there, a quiet object. Oddly shaped, faintly scented, suspiciously toothy. For weeks, no one touches it. Then slowly, people begin to pause. A novice kisses it gently. An elder taps it with his staff. Someone, you never find out who, takes a nibble. The bite is visible. Tiny, definitive. You never report it. Some relics were never meant to be venerated. Some were meant to be tasted. And some are better left unchewed. It starts with a drop. Not a big one. Just a quiet, unimpressive little plink that lands on Brother Tekal's shoulder during morning prayers. He does not react at first. This is the man, after all, who once sat through a 3-hour vigil while an owl nested in his hood. But the second drop lands on his psalter. He looks up. So do you. And then you all hear it buzzing. Faint at first like a bad memory. Then louder. Not angry. Not yet. But present. Persistent. From somewhere above, the rafters. A swarm. The roof. Beams are old. Worn smooth by centuries of prayer and occasional weather, there's always been dust. Sometimes mice. Once, famously, a lizard that joined Vespers for 3 consecutive nights. Brother Malaise scurries off to find the ladder in a scroll of bee-specific psalms. Brother Tekal wipes his shoulder and sighs. You are sent to investigate, of course. You climb slowly. The ladder groans like a monk rising after too much kneeling. The air grows warmer with each rung. The buzz intensifies. At the top, just beneath the peak of the roof, you find it. A nest. Not just a swarm. A structure. The bees have built around something. You squint. A cross. Wax. Yes, but not made by them. Placed half buried in comb, its surface slick with honey and prayer residue. Its arms chewed down, partially obscured by cells and soft shadows. The top glistens. A drip forms. Falls. That was the drop that began this. You reach for it. A. B lands on your hand. Another lands on the cross. You stop. The bees are not attacking, not defending, just guarding. You climb back down, report. They send Brother Nail, the waxmaker. He brings a smoker, a hood, and a bowl. You follow? Together, you ascend again. The bees allow him. You don't know why. He lifts the cross gently. Honey stretches between the comb and the wax. It doesn't break, it releases. Softly, like breath after confession. Back on the ground, he inspects it. The cross is old, worn smooth in places. One corner still bears the trace of an engraving, possibly a spiral or a very confused fish. It smells like memory that's been warmed too many times. The abbot comes, examines it, nods, says it's theirs now. Frown. But we took it down. He gestures toward the rafters, only temporarily, so the cross is not archived, not cleaned, not displayed. It's wrapped loosely, gently placed in a woven pouch. We return it to the rafters the next day. The bees resume their work. The drip stops. The prayers continue. Sometimes you glance upward during chants. You see a shimmer, not flame, not glass, just wax. Waiting. Some relics aren't for you. Some relics choose their own keepers. And some simply want to be left alone. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. It's carving day again. Not an official feast. Not even a liturgical note, just the informal.
A recurring moment when Brother Nail drags his table outside.
Sharpens his tools with the gravitas of a funeral bell, and declares that any wax not formed into something useful within the hour will be returned to the bees with a note of disappointment. You are, as usual, volunteered? Alongside you, 3 novices,
Oh,
none of whom can carve a straight line or follow an instruction without somehow getting beeswax in their hair. Today's task is simple. Make votive crosses, not large, not elaborate. Just palm-sized tokens for equal arms, no flourishes. Simple, stable, stackable. The first novice makes his too thin, but curls like a dying leaf. The second makes his too thick. It resembles a biscuit more than a cross. It smells vaguely of guilt and cinnamon. The third tries to get creative. He shapes the arms unevenly, adds a swirl in the middle, carves a border of dots that look suspiciously like teeth. Brother Nael watches in silence. Then, without speaking, removes the carving from his hands and places it in the remelt. Bowl with the ceremony of a silent excommunication, you, trying to behave, form a modest cross. It's adequate. Maybe a little slanted, but upright. Then comes the confession. The third novice, the creative one, approaches you after the session. Eyes wide, cheeks red. He whispers, "I used the wrong wax." You blink. There's more than one kind? He nods. The label jars were smudged. I may have used the liturgical blend, you sigh. The liturgical blend is meant for blessing. Candles only. It's mixed with oil, spices, sometimes a drop of wine, and a prayer that's supposed to be sung, not stirred. You examine his discarded cross. The wax has already begun to shift. The arms have melted slightly inward. The swirl. And the center is deeper now, more fluid, almost moving. You touch it. It's warm. Not from the sun. From itself. You carry it to Brother Naol. He frowns. Sighs. Another cross that won't hold its shape. Mutters. You expect him to drop it back into the bowl instead. Lops it gently in cloth. Sometimes he says they melt because they remember something we don't. He hands it to you. Put it on the south wall. You do. The wall of melted ones, crosses that shifted, leaned, bent, or collapsed. Not failures, just others. You place it there. It doesn't fall. That night, it's gone. Not stolen. It's just gone. The cloth remains folded in its place. A smear of wax shaped vaguely like wings. You say nothing. The novice returns to candle, duty. You return to yours. Sometimes the best crosses don't hold their shape. Sometimes they aren't supposed to. And sometimes they melt in just the right way to become something else entirely. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Fasting is never quiet. It's supposed to be a discipline of restraint, reflection, inward stillness. But But in practice, it is a symphony of stomach growls, suppressed sighs, and the scraping of bowls that return more echo than content. By the third day of the long fast, your thoughts are slower, your limbs lighter, and your attention disturbingly attuned to the faintest smells. Burnt porridge, a stale barley water, the ghost of garlic from someone else's spoon. You enter the refectory, hoping for a miracle. Not a large one. It's just a slightly less watery bowl. Maybe a corner of bread with some color to it. Instead, there's a pot. It's placed at the center of the table. Small, lidded, ceramic stained dark with use. The novices stare at it like it might contain answers, or at least legumes, brother. Gasha removes the lid. Inside. Honey, golden, glossy, thick enough to defy spoons and theology. The scent rises instantly warm, floral, sharp with memory. Every monk in the room inhales at the same moment, like bees disguised in wool. You are not supposed to have honey during the long fast. That's the rule. But Brother Gasha nods solemnly, takes one spoonful, and places it on his bread, and passes. The pot, no explanation. You receive it after 3 others. The sides are sticky, surface slightly rippled like it's already been prayed over. You take the smallest spoonful you can, not out of humility, but fear. If it's a mistake, you want to be the least guilty. It hits your tongue like memory, sunlight on stone, figs in summer, a feeling of safety you thought was lost with. Childhood, you chew slowly. The world does not end. You pass the pot. Later, after. The dishes are washed, and the novices have stopped buzzing. You corner Brother Gasha, isn't that? Not allowed? He shrugs. It is. Now. That's not how rules work. He smiles. No, but it is how hunger works. You blink. He explains. There's a passage buried deep in a set of scrolls no one reads, unless they're both bored and bilingual that mentions an exception. Honey used medicinally is permitted in small quantities during fasts. It's provided it's offered with prayer and humility. It had been forgotten until Brother Gasha, while searching for something else entirely, found it. On a Tuesday, in a footnote, he tested it that night, 1 spoonful, alone, no lightning, no guilt, just a soft warmth in the chest. Now he shares it once a day. Just enough, not as indulgence. As mercy, you begin to notice a change. Not dramatic, it's just small things. The chanting improves slightly. No one faints during matins. Novice smiles without regret. The honey becomes its own kind of liturgy, unspoken, understood. You ask the abbot if? He knows he does. Says only, there are worse heresies. You nod. Some sacraments are whispered, some are spread thin on barley bread, and some arrive in a jar with no label. Passed from hand to hand like a secret you're allowed to. Taste. It is inevitable. The moment something sweet appears in a monastic setting, someone takes more than their share. Not immediately, not boldly, but eventually. And it happens during the 5th day of the fast, when stomachs are growling like distant. Thunder and patience wears thin enough to be translucent. You wake early, earlier than necessary. It's just in time to see the back of a robe disappear around the corner of the pantry hallway. You think nothing of it. Could be Brother Malaise again. Reorganizing jars alphabetically? Could be a novice trying to sneak a second barley biscuit, which would be ambitious, considering they taste like regret and dry spoons. Later that morning, the honey jar is missing, not empty. Missing, gone. Brother Gasha stands at the head of the refectory, hands clasped, expression calm but quietly disappointed. The jar, he says, has vanished. No one speaks. Someone coughs. A spoon drops. You glance at Brother Tekel. He raises an eyebrow. You both know what this means. It's an investigation, but not the noisy kind. Not the dramatic, candlelit, interrogatory style you read about in parables. This is monastic investigation. Quiet, thorough, intensely awkward. Conducted through glances, silence, and the occasional passive-aggressive sweeping motion. You're assigned to assist, which mostly involves asking around gently, as if inquiring about a lost sheep rather than a purloined pot of sweetness. Number. One admits anything, until you find the sandals sticky. placed neatly outside. Novice's cell. You pause. The sandals are ordinary. Worn, one strap is slightly chewed. It's probably by a mouse with aspirations. But there's a faint golden residue on the soles. Not enough to glisten, just enough to hint. You knock. No answer. You knock again. Still no answer. Then you push the door open. Inside, the novice is asleep. Face down, arms sprawled, mouth slightly open. And in the corner, behind a stack of empty water flasks and 3 forbidden figs, the jar taut half full. Honey trails on the floor like a path laid by a very slow, very sticky prophet. You retrieve it carefully. Return it to the REFECTOR. Say nothing. Brother Gasha receives it with the same solemn nod he uses during absolution. He does not ask where it was. He does not scold. He wipes the rim, places it back in the center of the table, and says only, "Take less today, you do." A smaller spoonful, but somehow sweeter. The novice returns to prayers the next day, quiet, readied, not punished. Just watch. The sandals are washed, the figs are gone, the honey stays. Later, Brother Tekel mutters, "It's always the ones who chew their straps." You almost laugh. Some scenes are sticky, some forgiveness is edible, and some lessons, sweet and slow, are learned with one barefoot step at a time. Asterisk, asterisk, some mornings arrive already ruined. You wake with a headache, the kind that feels like someone tried to whisper theology into your skull all night and forgot to include punctuation. The air is cold in the particular way only stone knows how to be, not just unheated, but actively judgmental. Your robe feels damp, though it hasn't been near water in days. The candle you left burning has eaten itself into a stub and now leans sideways, like a monk who gave up halfway through matins. You trudge to the refectory. Breakfast is waiting. It is porridge, technically mostly water, slightly flour, arguably edible. It smells like it's trying to forget it used to be food. Someone has burned it. Not slightly, not charmingly, not in a way that suggests rustic character. It is blackened, sticky, and somehow both dry and wet at the same time, like despair made viscous. You take your bowl anyway, sit at the far table. The spoon refuses to break the surface for a moment, like even it doubts your choices. Across the room, brother, Gasha stands near the small honey jar. It's mostly empty. A thin golden line curls around the bottom. It's not enough for a full spoonful, maybe enough for a smear. He doesn't move to touch it. You glance around, no one is watching. You walk over slowly, bowl in hand, spoon trembling slightly more from frustration than piety. He steps aside, says nothing. You dip the edge of your spoon into the jar. Just the tip, not a scoop, not even a spoonful. Just enough to tint the porridge with the possibility of sweetness. You stir it in. The porridge changes color slightly, smells marginally better. Like someone once said the word flour nearby. You take a bite. It is not good, but it is better. The honey lingers, softens the edge, like music barely audible under a lecture, enough to keep you seated, enough to help you finish. You glance at Brother Gasha again. He shrugs. Small sweetness, he says. Big mercy. Later, the novices try the same. They hover near the jar, each taking just enough to matter, not enough to hoard. The honey line drops slowly, not dramatically, but enough to notice. No one is punished. That evening, the pot is refilled. No ceremony, no explanation, just there, on the table. Waiting, Brother Tekel says it must be a donation, or a miracle, or both. You don't ask. The next day's porridge is no better, but now it has a companion, a small jar, a small spoon, a quiet promise. Some days are bitter. Some porridge deserves exile, but even the worst mornings can be survived. So enough honey to remind you the world isn't punishing you. It's testing your palate. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. The fast of silence arrives each season. With the gravity of thunderclouds and the practicality of a broken wheel, 7 days of no speech, minimal gestures, and as few audible thoughts as possible. No chants, no readings allowed. No verbal reprimands, which means Brother Malaise spends the week glaring, with a sort of liturgical intensity, usually reserved for exorcisms. You wake on the second morning of the fast already tired of not speaking. The silence doesn't feel holy. It feels itchy, not like a wool robe, but like a sentence you never get to finish, constantly pausing on the edge of your lips. You make your way through the morning rituals, each gesture slightly too loud in your head. The splash of water in the basin, the cough you can't suppress, clack of wooden sandals against stone, like a guiltier version of applause. Breakfast is barley mash. Again, no honey on the table today. You sigh silently and carry your bowl to the far bench, trying to look composed and not utterly betrayed by the lack of sweetness. Then you see it. A cloth bundle, small, square, tightly folded, sitting. On the edge of your place, it's not yours. At least you don't remember folding anything that neatly. You glance sideways. No one is looking. Or rather, everyone is looking away in the practiced choreography of deniable gifting. You unwrap it. Inside, a spoon, and beneath the spoon, a scrap of linen soaked through with a golden smear. Honey, not much. Barely a mouthful, but enough. You look. Up again. Still no one looking. Though you're fairly sure Brother Tekel's lips have tightened in a way that means he's fighting a grin. You dip your spoon gently. Let it soak for a moment in the folded linen. Then scoop just the faintest amount onto your barley mash. The mash accepts it, like an apology. You take a bite. It tastes like a secret you didn't know someone kept for you. Like kindness folded into fabric, like silence that hums. You nod once. Toward no one in particular. Later in the scriptorium, someone leaves behind a spoon with a faint honey gloss. At evening prayers, someone places a tiny beeswax seal on the prayer mat. During sleep, you dream of jars without labels, passed under tables, pressed into palms. The silence continues. But it shifts. It becomes less empty. More warm, not absence, but space. Not punishment, but preparation. On the final day, as the bells ring and speech is permitted again, Brother Tekel walks past you. Doesn't stop. Doesn't look. Just murmurs. Some sweetness doesn't need a voice. You say nothing, because somehow that still feels right. Some rules break softly. Some offerings are wrapped in cloth, not glory, and some sweetness, however small, is enough to change how you carry the silence. It wasn't supposed to be open, the honey pot, that is. It was meant to be sealed until the midday blessing, part of the third fasting days, small sanctioned mercy. It had been placed carefully on the altar step, wrapped in white linen, covered with a lid carved from olive wood, and painted with 3 small crosses and a bee. And yet, when you enter the chapel at dawn, it's open, not just open, tipped honey. Pooled beneath it, like liquid amber regret, a trail has begun creeping toward the corner of the altar, glistening in the rising light. No one is in the room. No one else has seen it yet. You stand there, bowl in hand, unsure whether to panic or pray. You set the bowl down. Fetch a cloth. Kneel, the honey is warm, not hot, not sticky yet. Just warm, like sunlight or understanding. You try to scoop it up gently, but it resists containment. It spreads wider. The linen cloth begins to stick to the stone. Then you notice the footprints, tiny, barely there, shaped like a child's, or perhaps something older than childhood, like memory with toes. You blink, they vanish. The bees come next. Not many. 3, they land quietly, dip once each into the honey, and leave again without buzzing. Not urgent, not territorial, just tending. You finish cleaning, place the cloth into the basin, recover the pot. Try to shape the honey inside back into something resembling order. Brother Gashaw appears a few minutes later. Sees you kneeling, he doesn't ask. He walks to the pot, lifts the lid, nods, then places a second spoon beside it. At lunch, no one says anything. Each monk approaches. Each takes a spoonful. No one mentions the taste, but everyone's chewing is. Slower, more reverent, as if waiting for something inside the sweetness to speak. The abbot lasts to partake, pauses. He dips, lifts, tastes, then murmurs something under his breath that might be a verse or might be a sigh. That evening, Brother Tekel finds you outside by the fig tree. He sits beside you, doesn't speak for a long while, then says, "Did you see it?" You don't know what he means. Or maybe you do. You shrug. Something. He nods. That's usually enough. Then he stands, leaves, and the bees return. You hadn't noticed them waiting, but they were. One lands on your knee, another near your sandal, the third circles, then disappears. You don't move. Some blessings spill. Some are cleaned without comment. And some, the best ones, arrive early, unannounced, and vanish before you can decide what to call them. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. You weren't chosen for the Apiri shift. And yet here you are, holding the smoker with one hand and swatting gently at your own robe. With the other, as if that will dissuade bees from expressing their theological objections to your presence. The assigned beekeeper, Brother Amda, has a swollen wrist and a bandage that smells faintly of cloves and shame. He grunted at breakfast, waved vaguely toward the hives, and mumbled something about divine patience and poor reflexes. So now it's your problem. You approach the nearest hive slowly,
carefully, as if the wooden box contains not bees but confessions. The smoke curls upward in polite spirals. The hum inside deepens. Not a warning, not yet, but the sound of
1,000 wings agreeing to tolerate you, if only for a moment. Your job is simple. Retrieve the frames, check the wax, note any early crystallization. Do not take honey. Not during Lent. The rule is carved into the side of the gate in 3 languages. You open the hive inside. Order, chaos, and gold. The combs are full, rounded, glinting slightly with stored sweetness. One is cracked only slightly, and a thick golden bead clings to the edge like a tear that refuses to fall. You reach for it instinctively, then stop. You stare at it. It stares back. You close the hive. No tasting, not now. You return to the bench. Pull out the wax tablet you were given. Etch notes, comb stable, honey, excessive, no samples taken. Your stomach growls. The sound echoes inside your robe like a ghost pacing in a too small room. That evening, you return to your cell, exhausted and smelling faintly of smoke, bees, and guilt. You sit. You pray, you sleep, and you dream. You dream of honey, but not the taste. The feeling your dream hands are sticky, not unpleasantly, just warm, as if you've cupped sunlight. You bring your fingers to your lips. You do not lick them. You simply feel the scent floral, dense, tinged with rosemary and something older. Something like kindness that's been stored for 2, long and has started to change shape. You wake before dawn, the scent is still there. No honey in your cell. No spoon, just a small smear on your sleeve. Not enough to accuse, just enough to confuse you. Say nothing. That morning, Brother Amdi returns to the hives. His wrist is better. He nods at you. They liked you. You don't ask who they are. You don't ask how he knows at breakfast. The mash is bitter again. No honey, but it feels bearable. Some fasts aren't about what you eat. Some blessings arrive through scent, not taste. And some gifts, golden withheld. Untasted, stay with you longer than sweetness ever could. Asterisk, 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 it begins, as most monastic misfortunes do, with optimism. The scribe, a visiting one. All sharp robes and too bright ink announces his intention to copy the Psalms of Famine. A rare text used only during extended fasts, filled with lamentations that are so poetic they practically rhyme. With stomach cramps. He sets up in the scriptorium with a fresh quill, a clean desk, and a very large cup of barley broth, which is technically permitted but generally frowned upon after the 3rd cup. You're there copying margins, not texts, just margins. Ensuring the decorative lines remain within their allocated space and do not wander into sacred territory. It's thankless work. No one notices good margins. They only notice when they go wrong. That's when the bee arrives. Just one at first. Drifts lazily through the high windows, circles twice, and lands directly on the visiting scribe's page. He flicks it away with all the grace of someone who has never lived near hives. You wince. The bee returns. With a friend, soon there are 4. They buzz gently, not aggressive, but persistent. They land on the edge of the parchment on the ink. Well, on the scribe's sleeve. He swats. He curses quietly but audibly, not ideal during Lent. You walk over. The manuscript smells faintly sweet. You sniff the margin, honey. Very faint, but undeniably there. You tilt your head. The ink glistens oddly. You dip a finger in the scribe's ink pot. It's sticky. You taste it. You regret tasting it. It's honey-based ink, Brother Tekel, who has wandered in under the pretense of checking quill sharpness, raises one eyebrow so high it might qualify as a separate act of prayer. I think, he says slowly. Someone mistook the liturgical pigment jar for the secular one. You nod. The visiting scribe pales. He mutters something about glosses, emulsions, and antique recipes. You tune him out. The bees do not. They love it. By noon, the manuscript has to be moved, not because it's ruined, it's not. In fact, the text is flawless, but because it won't stop attracting bees. They hover near it like monks near a food cart during procession. The abbot inspects the pages, smells them. Blinks, declares, "It's beautiful." Then more softly and deeply. Impractical. The manuscript is wrapped in cloth and stored in the cool stone cellars, but the bees still visit the desk every day. 1 or 2 show up, land where the parchment once was, and rest there as if remembering sweetness that's no longer visible. Eventually, the desk is moved, but the bees keep coming. Brother Tekel calls it the memory of sugar. You just call it odd. Some scriptures are meant to be read, some are meant to be prayed, and some apparently are meant to be tasted, just enough to make bees remember where the words once lived. There's a room beneath the room you thought was the bottom. You don't find it deliberately. No one ever does. You discover it while chasing a broom, a particularly stubborn one that slipped from your hand during sweeping and clattered its clattered. Way behind the old pantry shelf, the one no one moves because it groans like a judgment and smells like cloves and despair. You crouch, reach for the broom. Find, instead, a draft. Stone shouldn't breathe, but this one does. You push the shelf. It resists, then rolls back on hidden wheels, revealing a stairwell so narrow it might have been designed by a miser or a beetle. It's dark but not empty. A cool breath rises from below, smelling faintly of beeswax, cold clay, and very old. Patience. Naturally you descend. The steps are worn. One is cracked. You step over it like you're stepping over a secret you're not sure you want to know. At the bottom, cellar, cool, round, quiet. Shelves line the walls, filled not with scrolls or tools, but jars, dozens, maybe hundreds, all sealed with wax. All the same shape, each labeled with a symbol, not letters. Just marks, crosses, dots, spirals. One looks like an ear, another like a sleeping cat. You pick one up, it's heavy. Surprisingly so. The lid bears the faint imprint of a bee. You tilt it. The contents move slowly, not like water, not like oil. Something thicker, something deliberate. You unseal it. Inside. Honey, golden, dense, perfectly smooth. It doesn't shimmer, it glows. You dip a finger, pause, then withdraw. You remember the rule, tasting without prayer. You murmur one badly structured, hastily formed, but sincere, then touch your tongue. The honey doesn't just taste sweet, it tastes recent. Like, it was harvested yesterday, but the jar is old, very old. The wax around the seal cracked from age. The dust on the shelf thick enough to write a confession in. You reseal the jar, take it upstairs, show. But Brother Gashaw, he says nothing for a long time then. I thought it was a rumor. You blink. What? The emergency cellar? Wait. Built after the Great Famine, stocked by a prior who believed fasting could be softened, just slightly, without being broken. These were to be used in desperate times. The scroll was lost. The map. misplaced. Everyone forgot, except apparently your broom. You look at the jar again. The honey still hasn't crystallized. That should be impossible. Brother Gashaw whispers something into the lid. A blessing. Or a thank you. Then stores the jar behind the altar. No label, just presence. In the following weeks, things improve slightly. No great miracle. Just fewer coughs. Softer mornings, better chanting, no. One asks where the extra sweetness comes from, but everyone knows. Some jars are never supposed to be found. Some secrets are stored in spirals, not scripts. And some honey waits centuries not to be consumed. But to remind you that patience is also a kind of mercy. Asterisk, 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 it was supposed to be a small moment, just a spoonful. The final one, from the communal jar, passed with quiet hands after morning prayer. It had lasted nearly 20 days, a small miracle considering the monastery's population. The temptation of unsupervised novices and Brother Malays's habit of accidentally overmeasuring, but now it's nearly empty. You tilt the jar gently. A golden thread clings to the inner wall, thick and slow, curling like old incense smoke reluctant to rise. One more portion, perhaps enough for two, if shared with skill. You hesitate. Brother Gashaw watches from across the table. He nods. You dip your spoon, scoop the final trace. No scraping, no indulgence. Just one smooth motion, a quiet thank you. To the bees, the monks, and whatever combination of prayer and bureaucracy allowed this jar to last as long as it did. You place the spoonful onto your barley bread. The scent rises warm, sharp, familiar now, like something your body remembers. Before your mind can name it, you chew slowly. Not because you must, but because you want it to last. The others do the same. There is no ceremony, no proclamation, just chewing, deliberate, grateful, a little sad. Brother Tekel breaks the silence. We should do something. Everyone looks up. He shrugs. It's gone. We should. Mark it. Someone suggests a prayer. Another suggests a fast. A third says, let's sing. This last one is met with raised brows, singing over honey. It sounds dramatic. It's possibly heretical. Still you. Gather in the chapel after chores. A small candle is lit. Beeswax, of course. The empty jar is placed on the altar. Cleaned, dried, lid still faintly sticky. Smells like memory pretending to be food. No one knows what to say, so you begin humming. Not a song, just a note. Low, steady, another joins. Then another. Soon, the room hums softly, not like music, not like speech, like bees, like breath, like fasting with a rhythm. It's not a hymn, but it becomes one. Afterward, the abbot nods, declares the jar a vessel of past mercy, says it shall be kept as a reminder, not of indulgence, but of restraint with joy. You place it on the shelf above the sacrament. No label, just there. Waiting, a week later, novice asks about the humming. You tell them it was for the honey. They laugh, then pause, and say, oh, because somehow they understand. Some sweetness does not need repeating. Some jars are never refilled, and some liturgies soft. Wordless, nearly absurd, are what keep monks from mistaking silence for absence. Asterisk, asterisk, you don't plan on opening. The jar sealed tight with red wax, edges dusted with flour. Tucked into the back of the apothecary cabinet, where things go to be remembered later, and usually aren't. You're only in there because Brother Am sent you for elderflower. Tincture, which smells like damp socks but is apparently good for the lungs. You reach too far, knock something loose, and it lands not with a clatter, but with the gentle thud of significance pretending not to draw attention. You pick it up. It's heavier than it looks, not labeled. Just a wax, mark on the lid. A circle within a square. You've seen that before, somewhere in the scroll margins, in the corner of a food record. In a dream where someone whispered, don't waste it without saying what it was. You bring it to the light. The wax is cracked, not broken. Just lined with age. You could reseal it icily, or you could open it. But it's the middle of Lent. Strict Lent. No mercy spoons. No medicinal indulgences. Even the barley is thinner than usual. Brother Tekel has been sharpening his glares. You hesitate. Then you see the parchment folded. It's brittle, stuck beneath the base of the jar. You unfold it carefully. Ink faded, but still legible. Open. Only if the silence is louder than the bells. You look around. The room is silent. But the bells haven't rung all morning. They're being repaired. The ropes frayed. The iron cracked. It's been a full day without sound. Even prayers feel thinner. The walls hum with absence. You decide this counts. You peel back the wax inside, honey. Dark, almost amber brown, thicker than usual, rich with the scent of time and something else. Perhaps grief that's been left too long in the sun. You dip. Your finger, just one taste. It's unlike the others. Deeper, less sweet, more honest. It's like a song that ends on the wrong note but still makes you cry. You seal the jar again. Place it on the WINDOWSIL. That evening, the air feels different. The monks eat slowly, speak less. It's not from discipline, from something closer. Two listening, as if waiting for something to arrive, even if it never will. You don't tell anyone about the jar, but you notice that Brother Tekel pauses slightly longer at the apothecary shelves the next day. His finger brushes the wax just once, before he walks away. You place the parchment beside the bell ropes, folded, but not hidden. No one asks. But later that week, when the bells ring again, for the first time in days, you hear it, a low, strange note, like something melted into the metal, or something remembered at the last. Second, some jars are meant to last, some fasts are meant to bend, and some graces arrive not in song or sermon, but in the smallest crack in wax, offered quietly, because the silence asked for it. Asterisk, 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 and now you've made it. Through the cliffs and the stings, through the silent spoons and the jars with no labels, through the hunger that hummed beneath every chant, and the sweetness that arrived just enough to keep you from drifting entirely into absence. Thank you for staying until the end. You walked with bees, fasted with monks, opened wax that wasn't yours to open, learned perhaps more deeply than you expected that not all mercy is loud. Some of it is stored away for years, waiting for a moment when even the silence forgets how to echo. We'll be back, of course, with more stone, more cold, more ancient voices in small rooms with bad light and good stories. You're always welcome. Just bring a blanket, maybe some tea, and the soft expectation that history rarely rushes, but always waits. And tonight, you are the one who must carry the basket once more.